Hello, everyone. We are starting a series of lessons dedicated to logging. Currently, we use the classic console error, console info, and console log for logging output. And this is generally sufficient for development, but it won't be enough for production. Because when we go to production, we might need to store logs not only in the console, but also send them elsewhere. There might be cases where we want to display some logs and not display others. And during development, we can make logs look nicer. Now there will be many lessons, and we will cover our entire application with logs. But first, let's create our logger. For logging, we will use a library called Winston. So let's create our logger using Winston. To do this, in the backend, in the lib folder, we'll create a file called logger.js. All right, with the following content. So we'll need in the variable, and we declare the logger. Just Winston, create logger. What is specified here? What do we have? We need to show everything above the debug level. We don't care about that. Actually, we are likely limited to having log levels info and error in the application. So it says we basically need all logs. So next, we specify the format. We ask it to include timestamps. In errors, we also ask to store our stack trace order of files that were called before the error occurred. And as a result, store everything in a format, and you can add some default metadata to the log. So, and we say that, well, this service is backend. Often, theoretically, you might have, well, more than one backend, right? There are several services on the backend. So, we called our backend, and host env. For local development, it's local. And in production, it will be production, accordingly. If you have a dev server, it will be dev. And in your system, where you'll be monitoring, you will always understand where these logs came from, and you can filter accordingly. So, if it's set up this way, it needs to define transport. Right now, we have console transport, but technically, in the future, you can add transport to send it not only to the console, but to a third-party service. Actually, setting up the logger is something done once for the entire project, and then used everywhere. But let's try applying it somewhere for now and see how our logs look. Well, let's just do it in our backend's index.ts file. So, is the backend working at all? Yes, the backend is working. We go into the backend and navigate to the index.ts file. Okay, and replace console.info with logger.info. We take the logger from elib.logger. So here logger.info. Here logger.error. Good. And let's check the output in our console. So, we load up. Yes, it looks less readable now, but this won't last long. In the following lessons, we'll fix all this and make it better for development than it was before. All right, for now, we can see that when we log, it outputs JSON here, host.env.local, level.info. The level is determined by this expression, corresponding message, service, and timestamp. All right, in future lessons, we'll continue to improve this logger in various ways, but for now, let's just apply it wherever we have it. I suggest the following. Let's establish a rule on the backend that console shouldn't be used at all in any sense now. Neither console info nor console error. We'll simply forbid this, run pnpm-lint, and find all the places where we need to insert our logger. So let's go to the backend in.slinter.yml and add rules, no console error. All right, so before this rule was inherited from the root, we also had no console here. I suggest we remove it from here since we now have different logic on the back end and front end, and we'll allow it on the front end. Yes, as long as it's not log, not console log. So we'll remove it from here and move it to webapp.slanecrat.iml. All right, rules. Okay, good. And let's run lint on the backend. Here are all the places. So, accordingly here, we just changed to logger.error again. And in the email, we changed to logger.info. So, we need to import. Good. Again, the logger. So, great. Replaced. Good. So let's check that we didn't forget anything. It turns out we added the logger itself. In ESLint, we prohibit it using the old console.log. Excellent. And we can move on. Thanks, everyone. Now we will improve our logger. See you soon.